Well, foreign-backed militants fighting against the Syrian government attack a predominantly Alawite village in the central province of Hama. Syrian media reports say that the militants have killed nearly a dozen civilians in the village of Ma'an. Among the groups were members of the terrorist organization, the Al-Nusra Front. We have now learned that Syrian armed forces have managed to drive the militants out of the village. Syria has been gripped by deadly unrest in the past 21 months. Damascus says the U.S. and its Western and regional allies are behind the violence. Let me switch over to Idaho, joined by a member of the Crescent and Cross Solidarity Movement, Mr. Mark Glenn. Thanks so much for being with us. Mark, it just seems that the news gets worse and worse, the types of crimes that are being committed inside of Syria by the so-called oppositional or Al-Nusra Front. What is it going to take in order for the international community to back off of this violence and this support of these atrocities that are taking place inside of Syria?
Well, I don't know that they're going to back off on their own. I think that what it's going to take is a really big bodyguard in the neighborhood, and in that I mean somebody such as Russia or China stepping forward either in a diplomatic way or in a military way, and coming forward and saying, let's just cut to the chase here. Let's just stop with the drama. Let's stop with the theatrics, and let's just call this thing for what it is. It is terrorism. This is the very same kind of business that supposedly was the reason for the United States going to war against Iraq, going to war against Afghanistan, killing almost 1 million innocent people. Here you have some of these rebels being backed by the West, using chemical weapons and bombing civilian places, leading to hundreds of people being killed. Now, if this were any other group participating in this kind of activity against a Western or an Israeli target, then they would be called rightly for what they are, which is terrorists. But yet they're able to do these things and get away with these kinds of actions. And yet supposedly here on the night before Christians and Muslims remember the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ, we're supposed to look at these individuals as freedom fighters and as a good guy. So your question as to what it's going to take, it's going to take some really big guns stepping into this thing and enforcing the moral point in all of this that has to be made.
Well, Mark, do you think that the United States and their allies in the region miscalculated? Do you think that they expected things to change a lot more rapidly inside of Syria, and now basically they're reaching a point of no return, that anything goes in order to try to bring down the Syrian government?
Yes, I think that is precisely what we see taking place here. The United States, Israel, and these other Western countries who have been behind all of this unrest from the beginning figured that this was going to be another Egypt or another Tunisia, or at the very least it was going to be another Libya. That if the pressure, the diplomatic pressure and the social pressures from within the countries themselves were not enough to bring these governments down, then a relatively short bombing campaign on the part of NATO would be enough to drive President Assad from power. So the fact of the matter is, however, is that we have other players involved in this, namely Iran, Russia, China, and other players who recognize that what is at stake here is not just about Syria, but really is, for all intents and purposes, about the rest of the world. And this is the reason why I think that the West has miscalculated. You're correct in that word. And they have gotten themselves into something much bigger than I think that they possibly had imagined. And for the rest of us, it's just a big question mark as to whether or not the West and Israel are going to back down, or whether they're going to go the full distance in all this and actually initiate some type of military conflict against Syria that could very easily wind up involving Syria and Russia, China, Iran, and other major players.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us out of Idaho from the Crescent and Cross Solidarity Movement, Mr. Mark Glenn.